Welcome to the show on an evening when there's been a major announcement in Sheffield sport. We'll be talking about that. I'll be giving an overview of that. It concerns Sheffield United. And when James Gregg joins us in part two, we'll hopefully get a cross-section of some of your reaction, some of your tweets on the power shift at Sheffield United. Talking of power, probably no more powerful a sporting outfit in Sheffield than the wonderful Sheffield Sharks of the National Basketball League, who are so dominant. They've won more trophies than I could count when I was looking at Wikipedia earlier, and they're highly successful. Long-serving captain, I'm delighted to say, Mike Tuck is with us in the studio. Hello, Mike.
Hi.
Lovely to see you again.
You too.
I think this is your third appearance on the show.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Not at all, and you've got a marvellous stretch of matches coming up. I think 5 big ones in 10 days, and big opportunities on 2 fronts, so we'll talk about that as well.
We will.
Also delighted to be joined by perhaps the one football journalist round here who knows what he's talking about. That's because he kicked a ball at a far more decent level than most of us. Richard Fidler, my old colleague, former Sheffield star, and often see him at weekend matches covering games, particularly in the Championship, on this patch for national newspapers. Busy time in Sheffield football that we'll be looking at with you. Owls and Blades on the field with big derbies this weekend.
Both big weekend, yes. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Absolutely. I'm going to Bramall Lane, Sheffield United against Leeds.
I'll be there.
You're at that one, are you?
Yeah.
And not at Barnsley, who are playing Sheffield Wednesday. And with Richard tonight, we'll talk about the managerial changes that there have been as well with Barnsley, sadly for them, and I do feel for them, losing their manager, Paul Heckingbottom, to Leeds United. Just before I go to Leeds United, Heckingbottom at Bramall Lane to start with. Goodness me, there's so much to talk about tonight, I don't know where to start. But just before I address, and for anybody who's not seen it, the big Sheffield United news of the night, we'll be digesting that. Just tell us what you've got coming up, Mike, for Sheffield Sharks.
We are in the middle of the 2 legs of the trophy semi-final. So it's the BBL trophy, which is similar to FA Cup, I would guess you would make it. And we faced Worcester Wolves last night in Worcester in the first leg, and we tied the game 86-86. So game finished, halfway point, so it's 86-86. So we play them this Sunday at the EIS in Sheffield at 4 p.m. And it's going to be, winner takes all. It's 0-0, so all we have to do is win the game to get to that final.
You make it sound very simple.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of hard work and graft that got us there, and obviously we're not there yet, but I'm confident that our boys are going to show up on the day, and hopefully we can take this amazing opportunity in front of us and make a final.
Is that rare for a game to be drawn like that? I
think, yeah, in basketball, definitely. Yeah.
So.
Especially, this isn't something, coming, obviously I'm from Canada, and coming from North America, we, in a playoff scenario or anything like that, we would do a series rather than a 2-leg stint. But we're in England. We're going to do it the British way. So yeah, they do legs here. So 1 home, 1 away, aggregate score. I'm used to it now. It took a few of the other guys on the team a while to kind of understand it all. But I think the biggest thing is in that first game, you just got to realize that you have to play the whole game out, the whole 40 minutes. You can't let up, even if you're down, and you can't let your foot off the gas because it's only halftime at the end of that first game, so you have a whole another half to play. Yeah. So we had a good lead in that first game, and they fought and clawed their way back, and they hit a big 3 at the end of the game, and then one of our guards, Mackie McKnight, he hit a 3 to level it, and then the buzzer sounded. So 0-0 going into the next game, and I'm looking forward to it.
It was 86-86 actually, but effectively it's 0-0, and it's a big double header actually for you at the EIS this weekend. Richard, you're a basketball fan, and I know you attend quite a lot of these games. On the Sunday, that's the Wolves game in the second leg. But before that, you've got Leicester tomorrow, Friday evening, at the EIS as well. You're going to?
Might try and get down actually, yeah. Leicester are a very good team. Yeah, they've won a lot of trophies recently, and I think they're the ones to beat this year for the title, aren't they? I think. The Sharks, whoever they play, it's always a big game, because of the history of the club. Everybody wants to beat them, so no matter what the form Sharks are in, the other team come with a sort of a sign to beat them. So
well, anybody who can't, there's major TV coverage these days. I think Free Sports cover. I think BBC TV on the red button often stream basketball matches. So more on this to come as the programme develops. I mentioned James is joining us in part 2. Your tweets to me or to James appreciated, because that will give us a flavour. We'll perhaps read one or two out of what you make of the big Sheffield United news this evening. It didn't come as a total surprise to me, because in this job as a journalist you get steers of various grades of information, and a source came to me on Monday and very tantalisingly predicted what has actually unfolded today in the way of a statement from Sheffield United. But such is the political minefield of boardroom politics, if you like, and so ill-equipped. And I've got to admit that even as a journalist of 40-odd years standing, many of us, I think, are ill-equipped to deal with that side of the football business. It's certainly safer to stick with what goes on the field. So I'll attempt some kind of interpretation in the next couple of minutes of this statement that you may have seen from Sheffield United this evening. Let's remind ourselves of it now and look down what's been said. His Royal Highness Prince Abdullah, and I won't read the rest because I haven't got time before that disappears off the screen, and Kevin McCabe are in discussions regarding the transfer of ownership and control and Sheffield United Football Club to the Prince. Sheffield United FC is part of the Blades Leisure Limited Group, a joint venture between Sheffield United Limited, controlled by the McCabe family, and companies controlled by the Prince. Ownership of Blades Leisure Limited is governed by an investment agreement dated 30th of August 2013, which provides for the transfer of control of the Blades to the Prince. The investment agreement also includes a provision for the transfer of the club in certain circumstances of the freeholds of Bramall Lane Stadium, plus Shirecliffe Academy and the Junior Development Centre at Crooks. In response to a process commenced by Sheffield United, a company controlled by the Prince, served a notice exercising an option to purchase the remaining 50% of Blades Leisure from Sheffield United Limited. Both parties are currently in negotiation with regards to the remaining provisions in the investment agreement and hope to come to a final settlement in the near future. The Prince and Kevin McCabe want to reassure everyone connected to the club that the current negotiations and transfer of ownership will have no impact on the club's management and its staff. Well, you need perhaps somebody more across boardroom politics than I am to actually interpret a lot of that. But I think what is clear, as per the source that came to me on Monday, is that this agreement dates back some time to when the Prince actually came on the Sheffield United board, a transfer of power. It's been suggested to me certainly that was part of a legal agreement when the Prince arrived, that one could buy the other out, in this case the Prince taking out long-term or long-time Sheffield United owner Kevin McCabe, and that's the way it appears to be. I would be surprised, and this is just conjecture from me, knowing what I do about Kevin McCabe and having known him for some years, I would be surprised if he would be choosing to depart control at Sheffield United in other circumstances. I certainly, and I think I could probably speak for most observers of the Sheffield United scene, could not see him leaving in other circumstances were it not perhaps for a legal obligation to do so in the case of an offer from the other joint owner of Sheffield United. I think he's been a part of the club for so long that it gets into the system, and it's not so much of doing what's best in a business sense for him, more about his love of involvement and the heart and soul that he has in the football club. And I think that has never been in doubt from him, that commitment. Never forget, however, and I think some people have done, that when Prince Abdullah came in those few years ago, he actually acquired half of a football team. He didn't acquire half of a football club in terms of all the real estate controlled by the McCabe family. That's a different issue entirely. So the Prince had half of what that team in League One was worth, which was relatively little. And of course, he appeared to invest, I think the figure's around £13 million, in trying to bring Sheffield United up from that level. A lot of that investment went to waste, and hence, I think, leading on from that, and possibly as a result of that going to waste, we haven't actually seen too much evidence of investment from Prince Abdullah in the team since then, as Kevin McCabe then took the strain of it. So it's a very, very complex issue, really. The team now is worth, and whether this is a factor in the timing of this, the team now, thanks to Chris Wilder largely, is worth considerably more than ever it was when Prince Abdullah came onto the board. I think conservatively, if you had to estimate the value of the players at Sheffield United, were all of them to be sold, I'm not suggesting for one moment that would be the case, you'd be looking conservatively at £30 million right now, and probably greatly in excess of that. So it is now a valuable asset. And how much more valuable an asset will that be if Sheffield United gain promotion to the Premier League? Immeasurably so, which again could give a clue to the timing. As to other factors and the way people are reacting, there's been an element of shock at this. I'm guessing that some of the reaction which is still going on now is not altogether in favour of this. Prince Abdullah's attracted a fair amount of criticism for perceived non-investment of the squad over the past couple of seasons as Kevin McCabe picked up the reins. And I think he needs to address a question of trust, because for all the ups and downs of Sheffield United under the McCabes, and for all the bad decisions, and there have been one or two which Kevin has held his hand up to and admitted, bottom line is he's been very committed, and I think the bottom line is, I would hazard a guess that the majority of Sheffield United fans trust him. The same probably could not be said at this moment in time for Prince Abdullah, and I think he really does need to gain the trust of the fans of Sheffield United, not just in terms of coming through with investment in the squad. I think he really does have to address that side of things. So really, that's all I've got to say at this moment. There'll be more in part two when James Gregg joins us. One or two people worried about Chris Wilder and what would happen if another club came in for his services. Now, I would guess that in the reverse circumstances, if Kevin McCabe was in charge, there'd be less of a risk, in my view, of Sheffield United losing him. The phrase "better the devil you know" comes to mind, and because of familiarity over the years, you'd have to think that Chris Wilder's got more affinity for Kevin McCabe than he would have necessarily for Prince Abdullah, and that is also another thing that could be addressed by, potentially now, the new owner, 100%, of Sheffield United. We're going to come back to that with James in part two. Sorry about that, breaking in, but I think it was important that there was some comment from this show. I tell you, it's all gone over your head, Mike, and it takes a lot to go over your head because you're standing 6'6" tall, or sitting 6'6" tall.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, very, very, very interesting, and obviously, you know, boardroom politics and all that. But I think he's seeing the direction that the club's making. You know, they've made big strides in the last season and this season as well. Yeah. And he's seeing the direction that they're headed, and you know, he's took his chance. The Prince has took his chance.
It looks like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you know, a team that could potentially end up in the Premier League, maybe, you know, this year or next year.
Yeah. The intrigue's added to because he's just invested in a second-tier club in Belgium as well this week, which is that preceded this announcement. So I'm puzzled by that. But the one thing you've got is stability. Let's go back to basketball, because Atiba Lyons has been your coach now for almost since the start, hasn't he?
He's been the coach since I've been there, and he was coaching the season before I was there. So I think this is his 10th year. It's my 9th year as a player and his 10th year at the helm. So yeah, he's been there quite a while.
Just imagine that in football. I know that Arsene Wenger's been at Arsenal for 20 odd years, but I mean, really, Richard.
Well, when Atiba got the job, it was a bit of a shock appointment at the time, and it's been proved a very, very shrewd one. He was a player at the club at the time, and a very successful one as well. And I think as the years have gone by, Atiba would probably say himself, he's grown more into the role. He's always been a student of the game. And it was funny when I first reported on the Sharks when Atiba was a player. to see him now, and he's bringing a whole new generation of players through, and Mike has been virtually the one constant all the way through. Yeah. He's done very well for the club, and he should be proud of what he's done actually at the Sharks.
Absolutely. We'll talk more with Mike about these big matches coming up, and of course you also have a Commonwealth Games interest as well, don't you?
Yeah, over the summer I received a letter from Basketball England asking me about my interest in taking part, and you know.
And you said no, I'm not bothered.
Quite the opposite. I jumped at the chance. So there's 2 trials to get through to the final squad. Yeah. The first trial was a couple months ago. Made it through that trial into the next one, and the second trial is at the end of February. So the team will be announced just before March, and then the games are the first 2 weeks of April. So down on the Gold Coast of Australia. So,
oh, wonderful! Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, fingers crossed. I'm not counting any chickens before I get there, anything like that. But yeah, fingers crossed I make it through that final squad and have a chance to compete for England and go to the Commonwealth Games.
Excellent. Richard, the game that you're not at the weekend, Barnsley Sheffield Wednesday, and the background to it, with the Paul Heckingbottom move from Barnsley this week, you have to feel sorry, because no sooner do they get players of repute than they're sold. Get managers of repute, they're attracted away. Barnsley have this cross to bear all the time, it seems.
They do, and it's you can't blame Paul Heckingbottom for leaving in the slightest at all. It's his career, and jobs like Leeds don't come up every day. I think it's a shame that it happened just hours, I think, after he'd signed a new contract. But also, he did a great job for them. I mean, he was left a little bit in the lurch when he took over the job. And such is the nature of football that all of a sudden you go from being a rookie manager to being highly sought after relatively quickly. I'm fortunate to have played with Paul when we were younger, when we were 15, in the South Yorkshire setup. And he was an excellent player and a very sort of thoughtful footballer as well. So it's no surprise that he's gone on to be a good coach. And I think that's what he is. He's a very, very good coach.
A student of the game.
Student of the game, yeah. And the interesting thing now will be how the players react to him at Leeds, because with a bigger club you get bigger reputations, bigger personalities. There won't be as many younger players to throw into the action, because Leeds' aim basically is to get promoted. It's not about surviving in the league or having a nice season where you might challenge for the playoffs. They want to go up. It's a whole new lot of pressure for him.
It is. It's an instant impact that's being sought from him, really, and I think that's quite a tall order. But he does seem a very impressive character, I have to say. And you were, I was going to say, one of the few. We've all kicked a ball, Richard. We've all kicked a ball, but some of us have kicked a ball very badly, and some of us have kicked a ball fairly well.
It was fairly well. Yeah, I would say much more than that.
I mean, you were as a kid, you were at Leeds United and Hull City briefly as well, weren't you?
Yeah, I did all the sort of schoolboys through English schoolboys, and then signed with Leeds as a professional, and then played first team for Hull for a +1 appearance for Hull City.
One appearance for Hull City.
Yeah, but the old Division 2 as it was, League 1 now. Yeah. So I've done that. But
and you've done Stocksbridge Spark Steel.
Yeah, I went there, did about 6 years at Stocksbridge, and we had a fairly decent team.
It gives you a perspective on football. I think we all pretty well understand it. You can't do hundreds and hundreds of games and not understand it. But having played at that certain level, does that give you a bit of an edge, or is it wrong when people say, "Oh, you've never played at any level, so you don't understand it"?
Yeah, I think having seen it from both sides, I think it's very difficult when people say to a journalist such as yourself, "Oh, you've never played it, so you don't understand it," because you've seen so many hours. People like Jose Mourinho haven't done bad about it, not had a prolific professional career. No. I think it does give you a bit of an understanding in when people say they're not trying, or there's no effort, or things that are quite sort of lazy comments about certain players. Yeah. And also, I kind of laugh a little bit about the loyalty to clubs. Yes, there's a loyalty there, but it works both ways.
It's a career
exactly. For most people, it's a job, it's a career, they've got families, and it's a short one as well. And the clubs will get rid of the player without a moment's notice.
Absolutely.
And, as I know.
Right, we'll come to that in part 2. Would you believe that's the end of part 1? Unbelievable. As I say, James will be here, and we've got a longer part 2, so plenty more basketball, football to come, and the Blades. See ya.